Janet of Kuypers.
The Kuypers clan.
Hi. I would like to share 3, if that is okay with you, from one other book. It's called When You Dream Tonight. It's got my usual background, but it also has a moon photo that I took in there, this interwoven into my background. These are poems about dreams. Some of them were ones I wrote the morning after. Wait, I need to write this down. So, this one is called Transcribing Dreams 3. I was walking into your living room, and there was a 10-gallon fish tank there. You had just bought it. You were looking at the fish. That's when I walked over. And I saw a shark fish in the tank, one about 8 inches long, and he was at the bottom, killing and eating a 4-inch fish. There were other 1-inch fish swimming along at the top, neon tetras, small things. And I walked over, and the shark just was eating this 4-inch fish, and soon he was completely gone. And you were just looking, and you couldn't do anything to save the fish. And then another 4-inch fish came out of hiding from behind a plant on the left side of the tank, and he darted around. It looked like he was in a state of panic. Maybe he breathed the blood of the other 4-inch fish, his ally, his family. And he started darting around the tank, and the shark was just sitting there at the bottom of the tank, and the other 4-inch fish darted more. And then the shark just opened his mouth, and in a darting panic, the 4-inch fish swam straight into the shark's mouth. All he had to do was close his mouth and swallow the fish whole. There was no fight like with the first one. There was no struggle. And I looked over at you, and you were just amazed that the shark just ate your 2 fish, which are probably over $10 each, and that they just didn't get along in the tank together. And I looked at the tank, and I saw the other 1-inch neon tetras darting around at the top of the water. They knew they would be victims later, trapped in this little cage, and that the shark would just wait until he was bored and he administered his punishment. I wanted to ask you why you bought all of these different sized fish and expected them to live together peacefully. And maybe you didn't realize that a shark would need more food than you were prepared to buy him. Besides, a shark that size shouldn't be alone in a tank that small as 10 gallons. He needs room to grow. But before I could say anything, I saw the shark swim to the top of the water, push his head and nose out of the water, open the lid to the top of the aquarium. You weren't looking, so I told you to look over at the top and not to get too close. And the shark just sat there, looking at you, and it looked as if he wanted to show you what a good eater he was. It was almost as if he was looking to you for approval. This one is called People's Rights Misunderstood. I had a dream the other night that I was walking down the street in the city, and a man came up to me, a skinny man. He had lost his hair, and he walked right up to me, and he told me that no one cares anymore. And he took my hand, and he asked me to care about him. I'm not supposed to be like this, he said. I'm not homeless, you know. I have AIDS. And I wanted to tell him that someone did care, that he didn't have to die alone. But you know how sometimes when you can't do things in your dream no matter how hard you try? Well, my mouth was open. It was wide open, but no words were coming out. And you know, I'm afraid to go to sleep tonight. I'm afraid I'm going to walk down that street in the city, and I'm afraid that a pregnant woman is going to come up to me and ask me for a hanger. And I'll tell her there has to be another way. And she says, this is the way she chooses. And I'm afraid to walk down that street in that city, and a woman will come up to me and tell me she doesn't want to live because she's just been raped and the world doesn't make sense anymore. And I tell her that she can make it, and that 1 in 3 women are raped in their lifetime, and they all make it. And besides, the world doesn't make sense to anyone. And she says that doesn't make her feel any better. And I'm afraid that I won't be able to walk down that street in that city again without it looking like a Quentin Tarantino movie where everyone is pointing guns at each other. Yes, Mr. NRA, you are right. I feel so much safer knowing that everyone out there has a gun and that there are more gun shops and gas stations and that everyone is so willing to do the killing. Wait, why do my dreams have to be so much like real life? Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. This is the last poem in the book. I've never read it before, and I wrote it 4 or 5 months after my mother passed away. So this is Dreams 12807, Seeing Mom. This is the strangest thing. I remember it vividly, and I don't like to think this way, and I don't want these things to come through in my dreams. I'm going to see my father in Florida in a few weeks, and in my dream, it was shortly before I was going to Florida to see my father when my sister called to tell me that she just found a great price for airline tickets to Florida, and she was going to join me and be there in a day or two. And I told her, it's funny, I just heard that Aunt Sally was going to visit there too. And I didn't think of much of Aunt Sally telling me this, even though don't even think she has my phone number. I never see her. And besides, I didn't question why my dead mother's sister was going to see me at my dad's house. But the next thing I knew is I was in Florida, and I think everyone else was there too. And there was music coming from out of my dad's house, and I think there might have been a table or in the driveway for snacks for people meeting around at our house, like we were hosting an outdoor party. It hurts me so much to write this now, but Mom was there, alive. She was sitting in a chair, kind of like how she would sit in the driveway in a chair for 15 minutes to get some sun. I used to sit with her in the driveway with her like that. But she was there, sitting in a chair, probably because the chemo made her tired, that when she had the leukemia, she just didn't want to stand up. Well, she was there, and people were mingling, and every once in a while, someone would talk to her. But you know, it wasn't like everyone was amazed that she was alive, sitting there. This was just a party. And no one seemed to say anything about Mom. And I was there for a few moments, and I saw that at one point she was sitting alone, so I walked over to her. And you know, it reminds me of how when we saw my mom, when she first found out she had breast cancer, the sisters were there with Dad in the front of the house, figuring out where everyone would sleep. And I went over to my mom to get serious, and I asked her how she was really doing. And that was when she cried to tell me she also had cervical cancer, and she was about to have surgery for a radical hysterectomy. Well, you know, this moment reminded me of when I got serious and I asked her how she was really doing. And I couldn't bear to ask her why she was there or how she was alive. I know how anything would make my mom cry, and I didn't want to do that to her. So I finally walked over to her. She looked up at me, and all I could say was, "I love you." And my mom sounded like she was just about to start to cry. And she said, "Oh, don't." And that's when I woke up.